And coming up here next, we'll be talking about a citizens group that are putting together a drive to discover just how widespread, how pervasive is fraud in our electoral process. We'll be talking with one of the co-founders of the group, a citizen coalition. His name is Keet Lewis. You'll meet him here next, and you don't want to miss what he has to say and to show you. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Tonight, we're going to introduce you to a representative of a citizen coalition that's being built as we speak, led by the co-founders of Allied Security Operations Group, Keet Lewis and Russ Ramsland. They, in partnership with Kevin Freeman and the Economic War Room, are leading a grassroots organization trying to discover the full extent of fraud that occurred in electronic voting systems over the past week or two, and certainly on Election Day. And in accounting rooms as well, particularly in battleground states. I want to bring in now from Dallas, Texas, Keet Lewis. Keet and I will talk first about what he thinks is the extent of fraud and show you a website that they've created to look at various scenarios of various kinds of fraud. And I assure you, it appears to be extensive now. All of the data they've worked with has been reported to date. They have aggregated it and put it in form for all of us to look at and to respond to. This is obviously that data, much of it is not proved. But when you see what Keet Lewis has to show us, you're going to be fascinated. Keet, first of all, welcome to the broadcast. I have to say to you that, first of all, as a citizen, let me just say thank you for what you and your coalition are doing for this country. It is just sickening to think of the level of fraud in the country. How extensive do you think that fraud is, Keet?
Lou, first of all, just wanted to say thank you for what you do and to be able to follow my friend Sidney Powell and the great work that she does. It's terrific to be here. And to answer your question, Russ and I have been chasing down election fraud, mostly on the cyber side, as others, Heritage Foundation and others, were working on the voter fraud side for all of this last period of time. So our focus has been there. But what we saw, Lou, was a screaming need to look at the public side of this, because we know the lawyers are going to chase down and do the legal side, but what we were looking for is how do we turn public opinion? How do we let everyday Americans understand how rampant the fraud is? So with that, we put together a site that's like gamification.
Yep, let's put that up, if we may, and show everybody what the site everylegalvote.com looks like, what you'll find when you go to everylegalvote.com. Could we put that up, please? Okay, it's up, and what you're looking at there is the current situation. This is alleged fraud, shared fraud. Tell us what we're looking at here, Keet, if you would, real quick.
Well, what you're looking at is an interactive map, and we tried to make this like a gamification, a simple way to take mounds and mounds of data and make it viewable to everyday America. So that map, you could select a state, and it will drill down to the county maps, the county populations, and then we report the aggregated stories about fraud in each one of those states.
I just want to point out, as you will note there in orange, each one of those are battleground states in which there is alleged fraud. And the rest reflect at least the agreed upon Trump and Biden allocation of the electoral votes. Now let's show what that vote count looks like and what that map looks like if we include reports of fraud. Let's go to that map now, please.
Yes, you're toggling between the current status and then with fraud.
Yes.
And without.
And this, right. And if we can, let's go to the next map. And shows no voter fraud and reverses entirely the circumstance and the vote count electorally. Those electoral votes basically do almost an even flip when you take into account fraud and remove it from the map. So it's dramatic. And with that, you have also on the site, Keet, a drill down, as you suggested, in those questionable states for every voter to understand what's happening to his or her vote and how porous and vulnerable our electoral system is to intervention by bad actors, whether they be domestic or foreign, right?
That is correct. And we also have a button that they can report fraud upward to us. They can share their stories. We have a really interesting section called a primer on fraud, which this is the stuff that Russ and I have been working on, where we actually put in very common language all of the types of fraud that are out there. So the fraud primer, and then there's a deep dive for those that want a PhD in election fraud. So it's all there to communicate to us and help everybody understand this is not some one-off, every once in a while deal. This is rampant and pervasive and needs to be stopped. And this only began when we computerized the election system after the Help America Vote Act, after the hanging chads.
Right. That's going back. That's going back a ways.
Yes.
Right now, what you guys are doing for all of us is so important. We're deeply grateful. I want to recommend to all of our viewers that you go to everylegalvote.com. That's everylegalvote.com. You're going to find it absolutely terrific, astonishing, and very educational. Keet, as we break up here tonight, we want you back frequently to keep us surprised here. But
yes.
Your sense of just how broad and deep the fraud is, very quickly, we're out of time, but I want to get your view.
Well, quickly, on the mail-in ballots, as the president said, it was absolutely a setup for massive fraud. We have that. We know that that's the case, and we're seeing that in those counts. But we're not going to discount the actual cyber fraud, which is where where others are looking, and where Sidney Powell was talking in terms of massive voter fraud change at the cyber level. And we're chasing that down too. This was just the visualization of the complete picture. So hopefully your viewers and their friends and their partner organizations will get this out so that they feel empowered and don't feel despondent over this. But there's good news out there if America will just understand what's there and how bad it is.
Yeah, and for the good folks in Georgia, where they have just replaced voting machines, they have brand new voting machines that replaced almost new machines, and they've got a terrible mess on their hands going into a runoff election. This country needs to understand, every one of us needs to understand, and I'm only beginning to get a sense of the depth and the disturbing nature of all the vulnerabilities of our election system. It is truly, truly terrifying, and we need to get it, as you said, straightened out. And Keet Lewis and all are doing their very level best to help us do just that. Again, the website is everylegalvote.com.